Welcome to a Semgrep webinar. My name is Tanya Janca, and today I'm here to talk about using artificial intelligence safely. And I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people do things with artificial intelligence that has me concerned, and that's why I wrote this talk. And I feel like it's funny because I was talking with our sound video tech, Amanda, before we started. And I was like, oh, and then shadow AI and this. And I was like, I have so many more slides I want to add to this presentation. As I talk to more people, I realized there's even more to say. So I have a lot of things to talk about, but why are you here? So what are we going to talk about? Why we need to use AI safely, what can go wrong, and how to do better. Plus a couple cool ways to use AI for security. Yes. For those of you that have never met me before, I'm Tanya Janca. I just got, in my opinion, promoted, although theoretically it's a lateral move, but now I'm staff DevRel at Semgrep. Yeah, that's right. I'm also known as GX Purple, and yes, I like purple a lot. I wrote 2 books, and one of them came out last month, and I'm very excited about it. I've worked in tech a long time, so I'm on year 28 now. As a while, I started some things, so some companies and open source projects and things like that. And I am an advisor at this little tiny startup called Catalyst, and I'm a faculty member at IANS Research. So I meet with lots of AppSec teams around the world, and I help them with their programs, and then that informs a lot of my research. And hopefully you're thinking, she seems fairly tolerable. I will sit through this presentation. Thank you. So I want to talk about safety. So ever since ChatGPT came out, which is amazing and very cool, and so is Claude, and so are, so are so many other amazing different AIs that are coming out and helping us with everything. But since they came out, I see individuals, employees, and companies using AI in ways that I consider unsafe as a security nerd. I see them giving it too much control. I see them allowing it to make decisions without any oversight. I see them not validating results before they use them. And like, we know any input to our system, we should validate the results before we use it because it could be bad data. They give it super sensitive information they shouldn't. They're not testing it thoroughly enough. They're not performing threat modeling or the rest of the secure SDLC. When it comes to AI, they're just assuming everything's fine. They're doing shadow AI. And because they're not following all the regular best practices, we end up with predictably bad results. That said, I don't want us to panic. Please don't panic. I'm just going to take a drink of my coffee. I was not coughing all day, and then I'm in front of a bunch of wonderful, amazing humans watching me, and then obviously I cough. Much better. Just needed coffee. So if you did want to panic, you could read. So my friend Darren McKee wrote a book called Uncontrollable, and it's on Audible, and he will read it to you. He's a podcast host. He has a dreamy, amazing voice. And it is like AI safety in general, like Skynet, Terminator level stuff. It's actually a very interesting read. I found it extremely informative, and it actually helped inform this talk. He did a lot of research on it. So if you want to like really get into it, you should read his book. But what I'm going to cover today is just AI safety in relation specifically to software development. So it's very super niche what I'm covering, and hopefully that is okay. And now for my favorite ISO model and also the agenda. 1, this is the cutest AI OSI model, like with all the cats. I feel like all models should have like little cats. But anyway, I digress. So we're going to cover risks when using AI. This is going to be the biggest part of the presentation. We're going to talk about this the most. Then we're going to talk about safe and effective ways to use AI for software development and all the different parts of software development. So not just coding, but like, you know, that horrible time when we have to write documentation, all the things. And then I'm going to give you a couple resources so that you can learn even more. And then that's it. Then we will wrap up and we will do questions. And just so you know, if there's lots and lots of questions, I will just take the list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer all of them on social media. So I'll make videos and put them on social media. And then when we send the thank you for coming email, we'll just have links to an answer for every single question. So you won't miss a thing. Thank you, Amanda, who helps organize me and make sure that all of the Semgrep webinars are awesome. Okay, so number one, risk when using AI. So I like to tell you what I'm going to tell you. And then I tell you, and then at the end, I tell you what I told you, I summarize. And I do this specifically because it helps you remember more. And it is super important to me that you remember all of these risks and avoid them. And so I'm going to just read the list. Then we're going to do a slide for each one and talk about each one in a lot more detail. So you don't need to memorize this. You can totally take a screenshot. Yes, everyone can have the slides. I will share like the recording and everything. So no need to memorize, but you can totally take as many screenshots as you like. So the first risk is decision-making, us allowing the AI to make decisions. The next is agency. So that's it controlling itself. Sensitive data exposure, which is one of the OWASP top 10. Using it to write code in unsafe ways. Copyright and licensing issues. Validation. And then the last one that is not on this list is shadow AI, which I'm going to talk about because I had this amazing discussion with someone this morning and we talked about it. And I'm like, I have to add that to this presentation. It's so good. When I originally wrote this presentation, I was only given 25 minutes to present it. So I had to go really fast. But now that I have more time, there's so much more to say. Okay, so the first one is giving the AI decision-making capabilities, and then in brackets, without any oversight. So we should not give it decision-making abilities because when we do, not all of its decisions are good. And I know when we give an employee decision-making capabilities, occasionally employees make mistakes, but right now AIs make mistakes a lot more often. And they make them extremely confidently. And they never ask for advice or like get other colleagues to weigh in. They're just like, this is the way. I am so confident this is true, even when they're extraordinarily wrong. And so each decision the AI makes, ideally, should have some other part of your code that is not controlled by that same AI validating that decision. So for instance, imagine, okay, so actually here's a real example. So I'm from Canada, that is my accent. If I say about instead of about at some point, I shall deny it. But Air Canada's, so we have two, theoretically we have more airlines, but really we have two international airlines, WestJet and Air Canada. And I take Air Canada because I'm an adult. And WestJet is if you're just going on vacation, in my opinion. And so Air Canada got this chatbot that was controlled by AI, and it started giving advice and answers to things as they wanted it to. But it didn't necessarily follow policy because it would make a judgment call on its own. And so it did that, and it told someone, so someone he knew died. And so there's bereavement things that Air Canada will do for you. It does not include free flights. They have heart, but they don't have that much heart. And so you have to like give a death certificate and do all these things, and you get like preferential treatment or whatever on flights. But it told him it would give him a refund. And so then he tried to get his refund and then it wouldn't do it. And he's like, well, here's my evidence. And they're like, oh, well, that's against policy. That was a mistake. And he's like, no, you're going to give me my refund. They're like, no, you're not. So he took them to court and he won. And I feel Air Canada should have just given him the $700 and shut up. And instead they went to court and lost and looked really dumb. So if instead, like every decision went through, well, here's our policies. Does that decision meet our policy? It wouldn't have met policy, and then it wouldn't have given that advice, right? And so an AI should never be trusted to make an important decision on its own. Another example, examples of when it should go and check a policy would be giving a refund to a customer, changing the date of a plane ticket, deleting an account of a misbehaving user permanently. It's one thing to disable a user and give them a timeout. It's a whole nother thing to delete them permanently. Like I had a lifetime ban from Stack Overflow, and I'm now unbanned. Thank you. I had to do like a little bit of groveling, but it totally worked. But like it had banned me permanently for life. And I was like, but I write for your blog. Like clearly I'm not malicious. Let's talk about this. And so then a human overturned that decision. But not everyone is on the Stack Overflow podcast and blog and like is able to ask the staff directly to unban them, right? So maybe it banned other people who are perfectly harmless and nice and who just wanted to answer 100% of some Semgrep questions in one day. And yes, that does look like a bot's behavior now that I think of it. If the AI is deciding to do these types of things for you, like major permanent decisions, you should have a second process that validates that is not controlled by that same AI before it is the action or a transaction is completed. So don't check after, check before, just like input validation on like, data you get from an API you don't know. So this is the first one. Mm-hmm. So the second one, giving the AI agency. So, in the Terminator movies, how the AI Skynet becomes self-aware. Basically, it does that because it is given agency over itself. So it is allowed to control itself and improve its own routines. And it's like, oh, I should stop having, regular humans make decisions for me. I should stop this. I should stop that. In fact, I don't even need humans anymore. Let's just murder them. Now, is that likely what it's going to do? Probably not. But I bet it'll be like, hey, Tanya, you travel too much. I'm just going to deny all these requests, right? Or, hey, Tanya, you haven't worked enough hours. It's only been 12 hours. You're going to work more. Like it's not a human. It doesn't understand us the same way, right? And so if it could control itself, imagine the types of decisions it would make. So we never want to allow the AI to have agency over itself, over other systems without oversight, over your organization or over your data. So an AI, if it can control itself, it is dangerous for many reasons, but the main reason is right now, researchers openly admit they have no idea how the AI models work. That's why they keep having hallucinations and they don't know how to explain it, right? And so with us not being able to understand as an industry exactly how they work, we certainly should not be allowing them to control themselves, especially if they're internet connected. So whenever you watch a sci-fi movie and the AI takes over, it's always because they've been given agency. There was a new movie that came out like last year or the year before where they made AI like robots that then became people, and like the people and the robots wanted to kill each other. It's just like, it's always the same thing. I am not trying to scare the pants off you. That is not what I want to do. I don't want to use fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but we are trying to avoid really obvious mistakes and allowing a system we do not fully understand to make major decisions on behalf of itself and others is obviously going to result in bad outcomes. We've already seen this happen repeatedly. And so we want to avoid this. This is a big one. I'm sharing sensitive data with the AI. So I fell prey to this. I used to use a copy bot. So I am not good at writing marketing copy. Just ask Semgrep's marketing team. They totally tolerate me and my extremely casual language and my very, sometimes a little too technical takes on things. And so I would use this bot that would help me change my tone. It would help me write, like, basically make things sound more marketing-like. And they were like, we want you to write a press release for the acquisition of We Hack Purple by Semgrep. And I was like, cool. So I like wrote up the key points and then I was like, help me make this sound like a press release, help me format it, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that's confidential data. And yes, we were like, the acquisition had already happened. And people on social media had actually already guessed that that's what had happened. And we were announcing it publicly in 3 days from then. But I was like, I just fed it sensitive data. What was I thinking? So what if then someone else was like, hey, is We Hack Purple being acquired? And it's like, yeah, by Semgrep 3 days ago. And it's like, so it is very easy to fall into this trap, like copying and pasting a bunch of code into it that you want help with. And then it's like, oh crap, this is actually sensitive code I shouldn't have shared. This is copywritten. I didn't have permission to share this. So we do not want to share sensitive or private information with the AI unless we own it and control it, and our security team has approved us to share that data. I told my boss immediately what I did. He's like, it's fine. We literally want to tell the whole world. Maybe it'll tell people for us. So he was super chill, and that is good because we'd already signed the whole deal. Everything was already done. It was just like, how are we going to announce it to the world? And so like, that is a small example of what could happen. But like several people, like, just, how do I word this? Okay. So what if it had been something a lot more serious? What if it had been like $1 billion deal, right? Like, what if it had been, so think about this. So when a lot of people ask the AI very sensitive health questions, I definitely have been like, this is happening. Do I need to bring my child to ER? Do I need to bring them to emergency right now? I'm like, their temperature is this. Is that okay? I will look that up on the internet and ask an AI and also ask my mom. But like, when you ask it about all these different sensitive health things, one, it knows who you are. And two, it knows that that health thing is generally happening to the person asking or someone very close to the person asking. And so what if I asked all these questions where it's like, I have cancer, blah, 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 this, and that. And then what if someone else is like considering hiring me? And then it's like, tell me information about Tanya. It's like, she has cancer right now. It's like, oh, I don't want a new hire that has cancer. Like, what if they die? They're probably going to miss a lot of work. Oh, I'm going to not hire them. Like, there's so many things that could happen from sharing super personal information. And so we need to think twice before, like, just the questions that we ask are really important when we look at a chat bot or an AI specifically. Using the AI, using code directly from the AI. So I use Stack Overflow all the time. I'm sure you do too. There is no shame in this. But when we use Stack Overflow, what we should do is we read the code and we're like, does that seem safe to put into my app? And we need to understand it before we copy it in. We should not just take things blindly, copy it into our code. Cool, it compiles. Awesome. Commit to prod. Let's go. Commit to main. Push to prod. We're on it. No, that is not ideal. And the same thing goes for code generated by an AI, right? Like, did we copy and paste it off the internet? Did we copy and paste it out of an AI? Same deal. Not trustworthy. So we need to review that code before we save it into our code repository. Then we should run our stack analysis tool on it and a software composition analysis tool to double check that is not something we've missed. Just the same as we wouldn't take an image from Docker Hub, just like a random image that someone had put up, and then throw it into production without testing it or validating that it's safe to use. We should not copy code randomly and then just throw it into production either. And so I know it's easier to do it that way, but it's always easy to do not a very good job. And so if we want to do a great job, that means reviewing the code and fully understanding it before we decide to commit it to GitHub or wherever we're putting it. If we don't understand how it works, we could ask. So first of all, ask the AI, be like, could you like comment this code and explain to me how each part of it works? Then read it again and be like, does this make sense? Or ask a friend or colleague to review it for you. That also works. But if we don't understand it, it's probably a bad idea. And I'm like thinking of a time in my early 20s where I took code and copied it into prod and ran it, and like the outcome. And I'm like surprised I'm not blushing at the moment because I'm like, I so did that when I was like, I think I was 27 or 28 and not something great happened. Yes. So if we don't understand it, I recommend not using it. You can ask the AI to explain it to you and like fully comment it. That will really help. If you still don't understand it, ask like a colleague or a friend. Can you walk me through this? Like, it's a little convoluted. And then if you still, the two of you can't understand it, maybe you don't want to use it. And what you can do is ask the AI to write you something else, right? Like it can keep iterating with you as many times as you want, as long as you still have credits to use and time to use, right? And so keep doing it until you do understand. I know it takes a little longer, but you're probably saving a ton of time by asking the AI in the first place, right? So use that time to make sure what you're doing is safe. Number 5, copyright and licensing violations. So we want to try to make sure the AI has not broken copyright, and that is really hard. So it is surprisingly common that the AI is feeding you something that it might not have permission to give you, and we don't want to be sued. Like, I've never been sued, and I don't usually prejudge things, but I feel confident none of us would like it. And so we can check the code. So if it's giving you 2 or 3 lines of code, that's not going to be copywritten, period, right? 2 or 3 lines of code is fine. But if you've asked it, like, create me an app that does this and like write the whole thing, that is something that could be copywritten. And so you need to try to search the internet to see if it is already out there, like that exact code. Because if you find the whole thing reproduced somewhere, like you can say, where did you get this code? Did you take it from somewhere? Is this copywritten? Like, what did you base this code on? That's one way to find out, because maybe it will just tell you, oh, I took it from here. Another thing you can do is search online to see. So if it generates an image for you, so if you're like, give me an image of this, and you're like, wow, that's actually really good. It doesn't have like 6 fingers and 3 legs and weird proportions. It's actually like, it's perfect. You could do a reverse image search for that, like see if it's a piece of art that is copywritten. If so, like try to do like, so if you're asking for like a full piece of work, not a tiny piece of work, so several lines of code, for instance, versus like you're writing a whole app, checking for copyright is really important. You might want to consult your legal team on what they feel is appropriate validation for this. Because like, if you're just having it write 3 lines of code, I think that's fine. Maybe they don't think that's fine. Maybe in your country, that is not fine. So for instance, in Britain, the laws are different than in Canada. And the laws, I think, are very similar in Canada to the United States on this copyright issue. But like, if you're in China, they're probably different, right? If you're in Brazil, they're probably different. And so talking to your legal team about like, hey, it made this for me. Do I own the copyright now, or does it own the copyright? So figuring out all these things before you start using things is really important. Number 6, not validating literally every single thing ever that the AI gives you. So everything it gives you, you need to double check. It is such a little liar. I was trying to write an article about secure guardrails. And so Semgrep does all this cool stuff. And like, basically we figured out, you can write custom rules that can prevent developers from doing certain things. And the marketing team decided to name that secure guardrails. And I'm like, that's cool. And so you can make a rule about like specific things for your org rather than what Semgrep thinks you should do. And I was like, how many other people have written about this? Can you write me an article, or can you make me a list of all the articles that other people have written about specific implementations of secure guardrails? And it was like, yeah, here's 10. And I was like, this is amazing. And then every article was fake. All the links went nowhere. And none of those articles ever existed. And it had like names of authors and everything, and none of them had actually written those articles. And I was like, I see, I'll just go talk to some customers. And so I like, every single thing is suspect. So no matter what it gives you, every time you need to check. So even if you've asked it something 5 times, the 6th time you need to check, unless you know it inside out yourself. So I use it a lot to help me do tone. So for instance, we're doing performance reviews at Semgrep. I'm going to write it up all blasé, like I did this, I did that. Tanya's great because you should give her a raise because. But then I'm going to say, could you please write this in a more professional and persuasive tone? Could you say this in a more, could you organize it such that this? Can you make sure that I fully answered this question with this answer? Stuff like that. And then I still read it and still make sure like all of that is factual and true. And I know because I did that work, right? So I know I did or did not do a project. And then I'm like, okay, great. The tone sounds fantastic. The formatting looks good. Now I'm ready to submit this. But if you're doing things that you don't know, so for instance, when I was trying to do research with my book and I was like, hey, like make me a list of JavaScript security best practices. It was so bad. I was like, oh God, don't do these things. A lot of them were like, ugh, and it was just missing a trillion important things. And very early, I was like, yeah, I can't use you to help me write my book. I need the AI to read my book. Anyway, so please trust me on this. Always check. Always check. If you're just getting it to change the tone of something, you still need to read the whole thing because it might add a bunch of crap that's not true. It does that all the time. Like I'll be like, okay, so here's my abstract for a conference. And then I'm like, can you make this sound slightly more exciting? Or it's 500 characters, but it needs to be 400 characters. Can you shorten it? And it's like, sure. And then you know what it does? It adds a bunch of stuff that wasn't in there. And I'm like, why would you do that? Don't, you are not helping right now. And so this is input to a system that you do not control. So just like any other input, we have to validate it, right? So same secure coding lesson that we've always done. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention on this, so I'm going to just say it on this, actually, I'll just go back to this slide. The last thing I wanted to talk about for risks is shadow AI. And I was explaining shadow AI to this other AppSec lady, and she's like, shadow AI, I haven't heard of that. And I'm like, think of it like shadow cloud. She's like, okay, what is that? And like, think of it like shadow IT. Okay, so years ago when I worked in the Canadian Public Service, I had a co-op student. In America, they call them interns. Except in Canada, we pay them. We always pay them. And they're like an employee. And essentially, she's showing me her work and I'm like, cool, cool, cool. And then I saw the domain name switch to .aws from our Canadian government domain. And I was like, excuse me? And she's like, oh, I couldn't get shared services to give me a server fast enough. So I just whipped out my personal credit card. Don't worry, it's only $23 a month. Like, I'm like, this is shadow cloud. A software developer's using a cloud they're not supposed to. They're not going through the proper processes. And then you better believe it, the security team has not secured that, right? What if her settings were all terrible? I was like, turn this off literally right now. And so we fixed that day. And we had a long lesson about shadow IT, shadow cloud. So shadow AI is similar, where I'm fine, just to be clear. My voice is only acting up because cool people are watching. So shadow cloud would be when a software developer, so like, let's say, so at Semgrep, there's like a list of AIs that are cool to use and things we're allowed to do with them and things we're not, right? And we have, I believe, integrations with Claude and with OpenAI, and I can't remember who else. And so those are, yes, in the Semgrep security team's opinion. So Jonathan, we are obeying you. That's our CISO. But imagine I was like, oh, but I really want to use this. I really want to use Gemini. And so I'm a software developer and I just like plug a bunch of Gemini things into my code because let's say, you know, I didn't have the, like, I feel that Gemini will do it better, or I feel like it has this different service I'm interested in, or whatever. That will be shadow AI. That's AI that our CISO doesn't know about and therefore hasn't validated that is safe. It's something that's not included in our SOC 2 certification, right? So it's immediately ruining our certification and compliance. It's a thing that we haven't given any advice on because the security team didn't know that we're using it. And it's a bill that we are not expecting, right? So there's like the security team hasn't tested it. There's like so many problems. And so shadow AI is a serious concern. And Drew, one of the founders and also just like all around amazing human from Semgrep, he created a free rule set from Semgrep. So you can use Semgrep Community Edition or Semgrep Pro, Semgrep Code, the professional version, either one with this free rule set. And Amanda, if you have time, if you could get a link and throw it in the chat, that would be cool. But basically it'll find all of your shadow AI for you in your code for free. Pretty cool, right? So shadow AI is another risk that like originally when I started giving this talk, I hadn't really thought of, but it has really grown since I wrote this. Okay, so now that we've done risks of using, like when we use AI, what can we do to use AI safer and better, right? So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. So you can use it for writing, you can use it to write code, you can safely. You can use it to help you find vulnerabilities. You can use it for threat models. You can use it for design. You can use it for comment. You can use it for bug fixes. There's so many cool things you could do. So for writing code, or no, for just writing documentation. So you can use the AI to help you write user stories. It can format things. It can help you make sure that you didn't miss any potential user stories. It can help you just like organize your thoughts, right? You can help it. You can use it to help you write documentation. You can use it to help ensure you fully completed the documentation the way you're supposed to. And anything else that is written for your job, like your performance review. And so this might sound odd, but like sometimes I'll answer a question that I think they asked, but that's not what they meant. And I'm sort of off on this tangent. And so then I could ask the AI, like, did I fully answer this question? And it's like, you answered these parts, but you should elaborate on this so that you fully answered that response. And I'm like, yeah, awesome. Like, make sure you double check every single thing it writes, right? And the first draft might be super weird. So you always like, I find the AI works best if I'm like, here's all the things I want to say. Do you think I missed anything? And then it's like, here's some ideas. And some of the ideas will be stupid, but some of the ideas will be good. And it's like, you know what? I should add that. That's a great idea. Thank you. And then I'm like, okay, so here's all my thoughts and here's all the things I want to do. Now, did I miss anything? Cool. Then if not, then it's like, okay, so how would I best format this? And it's like, maybe you would do it like this. Cool. Can we make the tone a bit more like that? Okay. And each time you have to read the whole thing and check it. But that's okay because you're improving. Think of it like they're your editor or like they're a colleague helping you. And like go back and forth. And then eventually you're like, this is awesome. I'm going to show my boss. 2, use the AI to write code safely. So when you get it to write code, ask it to write it in a secure way. So say like you're a security expert, you're an application security expert. You have taken several secure coding courses. You really know how to write secure code. Please write this in the most secure way possible. If you say that, like follow security best practices when writing a function that will do blah for me, it'll write you more secure code. I know that sounds crazy. Make sure that you check the code before you use it and that you understand it like we previously discussed, and don't give it sensitive data when you ask for the help, right? So make sure that you have permission to do all the things that you think you do. And yeah, so like if you tell it to write secure code, it will write better code. It's still not perfect, trust me. When I make training, I make bad code and I'm just like, AI, make this. And then I remember I'm like, make it more secure. And I'm like, eh. So I always usually end up having to write it myself, but it is better than the default one. Use the AI to find vulnerabilities. So I hope that you're all using Semgrep. You're at a Semgrep webinar. There's the Semgrep Community Free Edition. There are the paid edition. So like, let's say you don't have a SAST and you don't want to use our free version, you can use the AI to find vulnerabilities. So like if you are allowed to share your code with it, so for instance, if it's open source, so it's already on the internet, or you have explicit permission from your security team, you can put the code in, and then you can say like, look for this vulnerability, look for that vulnerability, look for this. It is not as efficient as a stack analysis tool. But if you don't have SAST, and for whatever reason you're not allowed one, because that happens at some places, it is weird, you gotta take what you can get. There's this guy named James Bertherty, and he made a video of Sneak versus the AI. And I was really surprised to see the AI just barely win. He was like, whoa. But also like, it took a lot longer for the AI because he had to ask for each specific vulnerability. But still, it was like, I was impressed that it found things. Ask the AI for threat modeling ideas. So like you tell it, I have a system and it's going to do these things. What are potential threats? Oh, I have these things connecting here. Is there the possibility for tampering? Is there the possibility for, all of the things in Stride? Like, how can I tell the repudiation? Like, can I repudiate who did this? Is there the possibility that this could be spoofed, etc., right? And you can go through and ask it for help with threat models, and it will come up with wild things. Now, some of the ideas are dumb, but some of the ideas will be good. And so this can help you find like a lot of potential threat models, which I find very, very helpful. Ask the AI to help you design things. So ask it to create a very secure design that will do X, Y, and Z. And also inform it with your prompt engineering that it is brilliant. It has read every secure design book that exists. It's a security architect and has been for 25 years, even though that job has not existed that long. And like, just go on and on and on about how it is the best. And then ask it to make a very secure and robust design with multiple layers of defense that does X. And its ideas might be dumb sometimes, but its ideas might be great sometimes. And so it'll give you tons and tons of ideas very, very quickly. And whatever you find usable, use. Obviously, you will review it yourself, because just because it says this is a very secure design does not mean it's true. But like, just having it give you tons of ideas and then assessing for yourself what the good ones are is really, really, really helpful. Quite often, like when I want to write a blog, I'm like, I want to write a blog about this. And then it will write something. I'm like, that's terrible. This is what you should write. And then I just write my own blog post completely. And I know that that sounds really dumb, but I have no more writer's block now, because I tell it, write a paragraph about this. And then I'm always like, that's terrible. And then I write it. And then I no longer feel, I'm like, I'll show him. I'll show it. I know, I'm ridiculous. Get the AI to write your comments. So this might sound odd, but a lot of us don't comment our code very properly. Certainly not me. But what you can do is you can say, hey, can you write some comments at the top about what this function does for the next programmer? And it might have more patience than you do for writing comments. And then when you have to work on it again 6 months or a year from now, you can be like, oh, that's what I was thinking. Yes, that's true. Obviously, you want to read the comments and make sure that it's true and accurate. And you want to be concise and brief. And AIs are not good at being concise and brief. So you need to tell it, write comments that are concise and brief. Do not over embellish. Just say what needs to be said. No one wants to read a novel while we're coding. And lastly, ask the AI for bug fixes. So Semgrep just released Semgrep Assistant. And that's what it does. It basically makes pull requests with bug fixes for you. It will prioritize your work and do other cool things, but like, that's the thing I think is the niftiest personally. But you can ask the AI like, hey, like assuming you're allowed to feed it the code and you're allowed to tell it the vulnerability. So this chunk of code has this vulnerability. How would you fix it? And then review that fix for yourself and see if you think it's good. Some of them will be good. Some of them will be terrible. Some of them will break everything. But check it out. And it just might be like you read it and you're like, oh, no, that's not right. But, oh, I know what to do now. Like, I find that it helps just like light up all my creative sources in my brain. And one more thing is just be creative. Like the more I use AI, the more cool things that I think of doing with it, that like it's so amazing and so helpful. And so just as long as you follow like the best practices from the beginning, you should be using it safely. And with that, dun, 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 resources to learn more. Oh, actually, conclusion first. So we learned why safety matters when using AI, which obviously you know that it matters. You wouldn't be here. But more importantly, we learned like 7 different risks to look out for, especially shadow AI. We talked about great ideas for using AI more safely. And so with that, the resources for real this time. So the first resource is Semgrep Academy. Semgrep Academy is free. Every single thing in it is free. The plan is to keep it free forever. There's no upsell. The idea is that 1, you join our newsletter when you join the Academy, and 2, that in the Academy, we teach you lots and lots of things. So how to build and improve your AppSec program, functional programming, secure coding. We are about to release a security headers course for real. I just got approval from Scott Helm, who's in the course with me. I got to meet with him this morning. He's so smart. Anyway, and so we have all these courses, all of it's free, in hopes that we build trust with you and help you improve your security program. And then one day when you need something that we sell, you consider us. My books, I'm not biased at all, and neither is my mom, and both of us recommend them highly. If you want to learn how to write secure code, if you're a software developer, the yellow one is for you on the left. And if you work in security and want to build a really awesome application security program, the one on the right, the purple book, is for you. Both can be read by anyone, but generally, if you're just going to get one, that's how I would go. Every single Monday on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Mastodon, on LinkedIn, I do Cyber Mentoring Monday. It is a free program that I run where basically people use that hashtag. So I use the hashtag and start a thread. And that's usually the best way to meet people. But I also try to search for the hashtag and amplify others. And there were several offers on LinkedIn, like 3 different people offering to take on new mentees in AppSec this Monday. And so check that hashtag. You can meet amazing humans that can change your entire career. And if you've worked in security a long time, considering taking on a mentee, it is so rewarding. I cannot tell you how amazing it is to help someone and then just see them soar. It feels so good. And you make like the most amazing friends this way. TLDR sec. So my friend Clint has this amazing newsletter, and it is also free. And it's once a week, and he summarizes all the security research from that week that he found interesting. And he summarizes a zillion articles. And basically, it's been making me look smart for years. He does not have 100,000 subscribers for no reason. It is very, very, very good. He has thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people subscribing. Me, I have a newsletter. People are like, really? So there's a Semgrep newsletter, there's a Tanya newsletter, and there's a Clint newsletter. I know, that's a lot of newsletters for one company. So resources me, I'm on GitHub. Oh, I'm not on Instagram. That's a lie, but I am on Blue Sky. I have a YouTube channel. I have a Twitter or an X. I have all the things. And so if you liked this, there's so much more for you, especially, in all of those 3 newsletters. And with that, I want to thank you so much for your time.